Travel around Haert. Book written through L.T. Zupan. Read by L.T. Zupan. This book is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual events or locales or persons living or dead is entirely coincidental. Copyright 2017 by Leo Thomas Zupan IV. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopying, scanning, recording, or by any information storage or retrieval systems, without the written permission of the publisher, except where permitted by law. These writings began in the early autumn of 2012 and were completed and published in paperback and e-book formats late winter 2015. This book covers circa 1447 AD to 2018 GC, Gregorian calendar. This book devotes to anything with a heart of love. Travel around Haert. Intro. Dash 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 dash. Love. This book has become a compromised flaming piece of shit, or compile, from every environmental factor in our world, FYI. It's not how it wanted to get written. However, it has its moments. Cheers. Love. Origin. Quote, "But I am not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us." End quote. John Lennon, while in love. Chapter 1. Obets. Beyond numbers. Dash 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 dash. Love. Heart. Also as a friend. Before this begins, coherency, perfection, power, beauty, and ultimately love will grow or flourish and flower as this lives, and clarity as it glows, more as it grows. In proportion to the mutually admired and cherished holder of the text, whom people casually call a reader. Much love and respect. Love that is a love beyond love. Void of motherfucking idiocy. Pure devotion to the unwordable us. One. Dash 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 and obets. Smells like macaroni and cheese. Old macaroni and cheese. Charles Obets founded the village, a word of current origin with possible relation to one's trade. Leo the Fourth is the author's name, and usually said Lee, part Swift Creek Choctaw. Leo the First was born from his father, escaped close to Croatia for the murder of a rabbit. Then illegal hunting to feed children, sparking potential prison, sparked escape, with aid and with family. He did not make music. His son, Leo II, and his son's son, Leo III, did. Yet, none escaped countries. I have alchemized unknowingly the two. On the father's side. As the mother's side, Myrtle married in Altus, Oklahoma, Indian country. Birthing Alice, road train to Texas, and heads were threatened off in silly moments. Sandra, the daughter, gave birth to mother, Cheryl, pronounced Cher-all, ultimately Charlotte. Alcohols were walked by ancestry. Moreover, the good smell of apples, cigar, whole bit. Like the father's side, beautiful eyes, true Lee. Born in Atlanta, I am Atlantean. Two. Dash, 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 dash. Moved to Cleveland after 2+ years. In the first apartment, there was green carpet. I remember my parents telling me not to run, instantly hitting my head on a brown table. One of the corners cracked my head open. First memory, I was 3. After stitches came Bay Village, 4 to 7, with the dirtiest of the Great Lakes, once called the North Coast by excitables. Still in Cleveland, I remember picking strawberries. A wildish dog and an incident with a bee, spelled bee. I cried, saying I just wanted to play with it. Now I focus on flowers as well. So, the beautiful hearts started arguing. One wasn't as sure about some land of ashes. Sounded okay to us, or indifferent. We didn't like the fight feelings, but I don't even remember the move. Next came Mansfield, Ashland, Worcester, and the number 1353. Whirl away, they said. And so everyone did it first. Steady memory began 7. There were 3 sisters and 2 neighbor girls, female, in Mansfield occasionally. A town run was like quite a rush of energy from being based by the 1353 palace and farm. When we did those snow purities, I remember golden rosaries, golden hair, short stories, and piano. 3. dash 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 dash. The throat needed surgery and healing, which it received. Amish love horses. They learned chess from Zupan, and their checker consciousness grew from elder out. After the parents had a parental divorce, there were apartments and sold tractors and swollen emotion. I remember running down the street with a glass of orange juice because I was just so indecisive that day. Anyways, long story. New friends, many, many schools for 3 years. Thousands of children built self-consciousness, still thousands of parents, still. One girl looked like wife and defied social gain, loss, to talk with me at the recess lot. I told her that she probably shouldn't talk with me. She would lose socially for that. And she said, "I don't care about that," in so many words. "11 epiphanied creation of institution like marriage, being animals that created structure and rule, calling it absolute. We wound up driving back and forth around Ohio for 7 años before starting to settle. Included is southern Michigan. I distinctly remember Ypsilanti, rather unique, almost salty, trichomes. Popular word these days. Anyways, I also liked the Fleetwood Diner. So I found my way around, even though they only spoke Italian and I was fucking 15. It wasn't really pleasant, though, I'll tell you that. Around this time, my mouth began to deteriorate from within, though to this day, when it finally is repairing, the resorb remains not visible. Delicious tasting pizza I delivered in one of the best cars in the Malte Chorus. A 1987 golden tan bronze whatever Honda Accord. It's just something about the angling and the shaping might have been a 88, certainly not later. Ethan is a child, spawned him and another so far, whom is as worth love as everyone. I consider the whole world a family. She, Lisa, Ethan's womb, had a gravity, and we lied to our feelings about smoking seeds, making your seed not penetrate an egg. So okay. Rewind, medium speed, fast forward to Hartford, and a town called Kilbourne, which turned out to be a middle school. It's not a clever. So please slow down and it will start its blossom transcendence. 4 dash 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 dash. Years. Yes, that includes the word for above. Little travel. For 4 years. Flashback. When the car rides to bridge or connect to towns like Cleveland and Columbus in Ohio, a well before Arabia and USA started to connect. The fire blondest, the sister Kathy, would just scream all the time, but only for bursts. In the car. as long as we had our seatbelts on. You see. Through childhood was Matthew McKernan in Ashland, Corey from Denver, Russ and Rhea Fink lived in Worcester, Bob Curl had muscular dystrophy and the kids all insulted him. Matt Herzberger had an obviously wretched family name. Amber Groom was scared off by my father. I loved her. Sasha exposed herself sophomore year. Dan Eshelman introduced Marilyn Manson from 9 Inch Nails. Ivan was anti-Korn, the band, but introduced Bob Marley. Pink Floyd The Wall changed my life at the Sister Reina's friend's house. Ivan broke into an apartment in movie-like fashion, and my friends and the police intervened. I wish him the best. He was confused and mistreated ultimately. Dave was a good friend, but our interests drifted. Dan had to sleep out in a doghouse, literally because of his asshole father. Walter is a stepfather who listened to Bob Dylan, and when I introduced 9 Inch Nails, Closer to God, he actually cut through his discomfort and got it. Brian Leahy is cool. Bethany is screechy along with Nicole. Though I did finally sleep with her, not that it matters now. She has issues that I pray for when I'm not in pain from helping others. Nicole Carlini was gorgeous and young, became enamored with a fool by choice. She knew she would regret that choice, as everyone knows subtly when they will. Still many others, though this will stay dense writing for now. Relaxation is somewhere in Elysian. Telepathy and astrology and tarot, The Witch Fiancé, and Bhagavad Gita were budding spiritual interests. 18 trips, 10 wheels, to Quinn State area, roughly heavy with south plus west through 4 to 3 states, delivering the papers in service to the dollar bill and the father, who served the dollar bill as well, among others. So, here's an orthodox anecdote for the next segment of the Offering Apede. I intend to blend orth and un until it's beyond the need of any docs. It's just curing now. Still need the docs. Such an intuitional unraveling current with us, and not just me, just subtler with most of the greats. I choose blatant to the frequently dishonest subtle. I'm sitting on a front porch with my friend Pooch. His real name is Michael. I always told him I would prefer to call him that. It just seems more respecting. He says, well, if you really love that person, then would you take on something that scares you for that person? In so many words. And I said yes, repeatedly. Later, I have the opportunity to go the primordialist area of the continent, but triangulated energetically in a town that used to be called Hogtown. I discovered why in my own behaviors, and now Gainesville. Upon arrival, and Mike was talking about a relative of mine he was fond of, which he said had a demon attached to her. Having not known her at all, and correct in different Leveral's ways, I first went to a place called Covered Bridge Apartments. Obvious implication, every name. When I was there, I was compelled to write nonstop, like deluge. Chapter 2. Playa del Carmen. 1 dash 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 dash. Playa del Carmen has turquoise as the water, unlike any place. Carmen's Beach. From Mount Carmel, Carmen's Intuit route, and Etna, mountains look like crystal outburst, close to Sinai. At the age of 19, I petitioned my father and friends and others to go back to Gville. I was just utterly compelled by that feeling of that fucking place. Past travels to Narrowsburg, D.C., L.A., with my beloved aunt are stated here for beyond reason. And I loved the memories of working at Marcus Cinema. Later was the lush so fern, the grass was turquoise vine hair. San Marcos is in Tejas, energetically. Also known as the IMAX. It would excessive to type, say, IMAX. In order to grasp the taste of it, first I would say there was a build-up in Columbus. It was a comedic synergy. I argued through so much shit patiently that there was so much energy stirred up that I was fire arrival. And my sisters had started the bridge weeks after I show up, next to Harold's at Maud's old coffee shop, and it just keeps going. There was the distinctive shift in life and this book, as it is a book. Carmen's Bietch. They feel strong with the word for the moment until change happens now. 2 dash 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 dash. So I met Warren, of course. Didn't we all? Cliche ass named War in God Win. That really was his name. More importantly, I met Ramon Andre Mills, and he was very industrial genre by judgment. We were bridging worlds, talking with each other, had common interest about music. Also met Becky Patrick, Matt Maud's claimed owner, Jason fucking Burton, who appears later in LA. Ben, on of the very few males I've been physically involved with, in a church no less. Krista, a shaman and failed relationship, she talks constantly about nothing, never letting one word return. Naked Jen, a girl with issues. Layla, a 37-year-old Taiwanese getting a divorce who had a husband who had a man following us. So I ended the prolific kinkiness, unfortunately. Even used vases. Brandon, whose sister years later was a friend as awkward as him, both quite like turtle creatures. He always said he damaged his brain with alcohol and drugs, and said he was going abstinent once, which was a Gainesville fad sometimes. Never caught on. Adam and Oliver, from Sister Audrey's intro, were instructive and debilitating. In retrospect, it would have been nice to only have the former. Still, many others. Ramon was all about electronica, however, and I not to 100%ness, but that will come returned from its orbit later in this. So I and we started to stir up comedy to powerful emotional, energetic synergy volumes. Whole circles spasming and gravitating morphosis and purity in its to be kinder chrysalis stages. It was then chilled Lee met old girl Lauren becoming adult Ren. Three. I remember the first moment. It was relatively whack. To a mild or verde or fire roasted, but not fire souse level. You see, I prayed for her for years. By prayer, I mean I privately angled my head towards the above and spoke to and in a personified fashion, an allower of fulfilled desire. In the center of the back of the mind, I ignored the quiet sense that there had been a charging of sorts. Though I notice what they call God more than I don't care for beliefs or rigid terms. I prefer love to God. Unless that God is love, then I will call it love anyhow. So I prefer love beyond love. And that's when I seen her. But the love didn't mean a damn thing to me at first. I just wanted to get her. And she was just quite rude. Lauren later changed her name to Ren. It was suggested through my corporeal vessel's vocal portal. First Ren, then Ren. Glorianus grow best with full sun and autumn. She was like myself clawing out of her box using chemonosis and even organ humor or gravity. I barely got her, or we us. Barely. But finally, with tears, it was, I said, why can't you just be with me? She said no at first, but that was the pivot. There's a whole Dolly Museum LSD story. A whole Pachamama psilocybe reversion trans-telepath recollect or story. An antidote. Ultimately, the shaman Oliver, all of her, had sassafras and strong saved our dying relationship because I finally could speak from heart for a few hours. We could. The beauty of that experience still cannot be shared. Share now. But they are better, that will be. And yes, chemonosis is a word. Praise to internet's web. While together, she was told she would be president as a child. She was the only one comfortable at St. Peter's Dolly, and was just natural that way. To ask for a child 4 times, the conversations were a plea. I explained fear and encaved. We moved when she was 19. I was 21. After getting publicly married, after the non-event of private marriage with Divine. We had visions, like a trinity of ourselves and the spirit of child entering this realm to be within a trinity of months in the future of that past. Remain dear friends with Ramon, and well friends with 20 others. Drawn to Asheville, NC, months later, Jonah in womb. 4. Dash, 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 dash. Ren's parents built a house close to Asheville and took themselves to Yucatan with us by desire. In fact, Playa del Carmen has a club called Mandala, which uncovered a world later. That visit, the iguanas walked the path's ways, and the little brother-in-law had bribeberry on the little moped. That did deja vu back around later like a mandala, one only more. One word, deja vu. Wound up after not tantric sexuality. Still better than any we had heard a round of. We wound to Ohio. It was gracious desire that called the dad Leo, and through him, us, to Sure, Ohio. But then Elmira, NY, in a very powerfully personality texture of an absolutely nowhere kind of motel. Just really very strange. You may know the type. Hilton Head SC was also discovered to not have a coffee shop that people hung out at, circa Maud's, at the time that is Paramount. Only a decade later did Maud's lose luster. The beginning before the beginning before the beginning of this story really starts here. There were 2 trips before, no 3. I was in such a blotchy gray fog of desperation to escape. I scrawled on a little digital paper ascent, Austin, and a list below it. We looked first at Oregon and Asheville retract, but going forward we were told by the feeling is key, and was. First of the 3 trips is China. I was foolishly polyamorous at the time, though we all do our best. Now I am polyfidelitous, also a word. Enter net. After much description of that trip on a plug, I gave a novel to a girl who is very innocent. Very innocent. Even my young cockiness could not disgrace the moment. We remained very dear friends in heart, having not even held hands, but one day. I will omit only one experience in this book, here. So in Japan, same trip with China, I stepped on some bamboo in a bamboo grove, and the fucking thing pierced through my shoe, and my sock, and part of my foot. Just needed a band-aid, luckily. Band-aid is a musical term too, doesn't apply to that situation. Second of the 3 trips is NYC. 5. Dash, 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 dash. I might have the chronology a nib whack. It was thousands of days ago. NYC. Flamenco. So this man told me that the most magical guitaring I'd ever witnessed was energy I would return Ohio with and change would be. He ripped me off, I thought. That synergistically deja vu'd to later. In Vegas, I returned on fire to go. The deserts did something. Ren kept her deceit and I kept honesty. She remains not forgivable. The deceit involved a parlor employee with a great heart we all have. She was also quite very angry with honesty from the self-named Lee, who writes to you now. We gather rationed and depart. Arguments in a car, hauling a you-know-what. Texarkana was eerie and nice. Just went straight through Memphis that time. Memphis etemizes an inclusion of beauty, or cradling fragile. Agility was still horizon, soon lateral as well. 6 OSHO came to awareness in Austin. The light beyond light and dark duality of awareness. Lee is 24 now here. 8 years before this authoring, now 32. Coupled with one of his quasi-disciples, or a branch of lineage, Stefan, and the focus on the heart. The heart. The beginning before the beginning before the beginning of this story also is said to start here. Ren and Lee, me, had a rose quartz stone with a 7-pointed star on it, like the elven star, but not 11, necessarily. I toiled years, a lifetime spanning love with family, the Catholic, fatherly, and intuitive motherly wisdom, independent thought, teachers, and quantum occultistic trials, mainly just to get the brain stable, leading all to obsessive chakra internal emotional mapping, compassing to compassion. Laying on a sofa, the heart center broke open. I cried and laughed in aha mentalities, like epiphany sparked laughs. Breath became a lotus. As it blossomed, it is a world of ecstatic beauty. Every breath a stanza of teary awe. Seven, a posture supporting heart ecstasy and breath as a fuel of sorts. I walked through town with a hand receiving sacral and another exposing heart to the right. A round. This time I had communications with Kabbalistic friends about our communications with souls, not spatially constrained, non-local, salvia divinorum, ayahuasca, Illuminati imitation experiments, and a lot of learning. The heart still meant more experientially than any. In appreciation, I felt communications from illuminations, or Illuminati, as I have lovingly called them, part of the super-collective creatrix, self or fusion apart from confusion. They kindly, with a measure of concerned force, expressed that it is unwise, in ways, to go too far, too much, too fast. It creates what a creator is not goaling. It hurts that which is cared about. It is debilitation, for which I thanked them, and improvement follows another. I took a nap, and awoke in reality overlaying this one. Static, jagged scradle, breaking as itself was sky. Similar silhouettes of shadows walked through walls of the nap room until awoke. The culmination. Sufis, whirling dervishes, whose names stand apart as musicality, are sheltered in their notion that a ball of hash is the easiest way to attain liberation or reach the divine heart. Sheltered no more. I smoked some pot after much time of not, as I remain unattached to non-heart attachment. It hit me beyond any experience of the drugs, of emotion, or food, or experience. It wore off. After a day, the drug exited, and the exponentiation of the effects kept going. Intertwining breath and moving of consciousness, literally, to the center and heart of self. An unfolding, or awakening, or blossoming unfolded. Ren, with the experience, was periphery and moved to intimate, oscillating. She cried when we connected. In a love way, cried. Became distant when disconnected, oscillating. The son Jonah, as Ethan was held away, based in mother's fear, walked through triangular Nautilesian field the following day with Lee's selves self, and became teacher, student, child taught with very being, pure, as expression, you see. So that is where the heart truly entered, not yet to live as it and others. Thus began travel around heart. Chapter 3, Elysian Fields. 1. Elysian Fields. Mystic aether. Mist. I never missed what I always missed, so found those fields. Ways all earlier, more later always. Blessed and mystical is the word Elysian, and when I saw the word on the green road sign by the Orleans, it was a field of blue-green, felt unwordable. Also, before a Gothic club in Austin, Orleans, quite dark, we now connect. This could be considered the beginning before the beginning of this story. The actual beginning being Escape 1, 2 phases ahead, aka chapters. I left Austin to return to Gainesville. It was a fond memorial, that town, like comfort food, only better. A divorce momented at the exact time Ren deceived again, and I screamed, "That's it, we're over." Or similar, and exploded the rose quartz stone with the elven 7-pointed star inked on it to the corner of the room. I loved a friend named Bethany, awkward and almost wiry, but in love with Jack White and Dylan. I became introduced in the CD deck. We drove away together to Florida. I told Ren, to spite her, that our mutual friend and lover Bethany, or Bethany, doesn't really matter how it's spelled. I love the variety of spelling, when just exactly perfect, was leaving with me. I wished her the best with her new love, Tweety, and I meant it. It was only her deceit that ever truly hurt. We fled needing both to breathe outside of Austin, as badass and lovable as that town really is. Different in many ways to the rest of Tejas, though all of that state has some aspects really worth loving, like all of everything, my heart still says. After one enjoyable but not divine in its love night in a Bayou hotel, we arrived in Gainesville. She left 2 days later. Two. Dash, 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 dash. Ka. Gainesville evolved. 19. Origin Ali. Tivoli was spelled I love it backwards. Now was the boardwalk. Next door. These are apartment complex. So it begins. Still it does start at Escape Aid. Last chance to fizzle. Beloved hears. Changes now here. See my cut through the holes. Watch, question mark, V equals IQ underscore W2 SRWCTA. 3 dash 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 dash. So it was first to the mod circulator in Sun Center, Coffee Construct Complex. First I met Wesley. He was loving with outer layers of smug, like a fucking energetic coat he wore, hiding his real self, like almost all humans on this planet. He read pages like this very fast, so the emotion died. The real self is less hidden as a child, before most choose to lie more and more, constructing auric layers of fake. Oh no, what kind of a book is this? One that sometimes doesn't want to be read. Movement to Love is a group effort, and I love the center of the Wesses of an earth, enough to help, and really a love much greater than people yet know. A love for those same people who don't know of the love that is waiting dormant for them. Wes identified as a poet, has poet social status as an evolution from the older Philip Goodwin last time living in Gainesville. Yes, that is a real name. Phil chose more kindness, however, than Wes. Reading poetry Lee wrote for 13 years, at the time, current pieces. He said it needed surgery and said 0 words about any lines that were valuable. It hurt, showing lack of love within him, and debilitated us both. Like reading and doubting at the same time. It showed a lack of love. For himself, then others. Bob was another. Bisexual, later identifying with identity as gray. Also smug, more aloof, occasionally kind with a prelude, Honda, a Molly shaman, and gentle soul when not smug. By the way, sacred sexuality transcends orientation. Females are my love as lovable and physical when I used to care about sex. when I used to care about women that don't know what love is. I love goddess, for lack of a better word. Dante and a few other gnarly new evolutions of pedestaled males by female groups in continued injustice, illustrated disgusted rigidity, somehow praised. Donnie was an old acquaintance. He lived with Troy, and I delivered pizza, living in a complex apartment with a corner room. Aranis was also known as Christy. Her sister was Melissa, and was in the rave glowstick goth scene. She had a weathered face, though young, with brown hair and a nickname Skittles. She was a social tease, which is a tragic love prevention mechanism. To one's own self as a well, I explained to her for what effect it had. Hot body, hurt eyes that hid. I spent time mainly around Aranis for spiritual growth or accelerated awakening. Lee appeared in Gville with a golden amulet of great presence. Slowly it was disgraced by others, but it caused Aranis, who was like a mother to all the spiritualist children of Miriam's Vortex, aka Gainesville, a mother to 20-plus kids, spiritually. By mother I mean spiritually raised them, and was called to the amulet. Later determined one of the furies her spirit was. We never collided. I respected her fiercity, ferocity. She said I would be in the ward room, and I was, as war raged before I did against my will. In a similar vein is a name-forgotten soul who is obsessed with Cthulhu. Moreover, H.P. Lovecraft, whose last name is great. He was very dark. I asked him what he thought of evil, back when I was a questioner. He put into words, "My soul is too old to care to be evil anymore, but I used to be. Now it amuses me." And twisted a grin I still recall as artistic. Though not where I stand, I respect that old soul for his art of being and wisdom. Nowadays and nights, I affiliate with love beyond love, which cancels everything. So on a brighter note, I met an soul underage girl, Shannon. I'm not going to say she crushed up lines of MDMA ecstasy on an astrology book while topless in the corner of aforementioned apartment, because then it would be ignored that she was a fairly tortured soul as well, very callous to love because of her family. Today I would not touch her skin if I could not touch her soul. The help offered did some good because the police base relationships on numbers. I vowed to not do that again, and almost entirely honored that vow. An oath, on the other hand, I will not. The state is wrong to judge love by numbers. But I am glad some fools that don't care about love get taken to jail for being careless to females' hearts, and not judging if their soul and body are either too young, old, or not well matched. Chemistry is a pure and real feeling, as real, of course. Love, and its sexual expression and outgrowth, does not disappear the day of a birthday of a set number of a year, when the clock arches through 11 and 12. So one more woman-girl story if you're still reading. She was 19. Woman-girl because only later did goddess begin appearing beautifully more and more, in Vietnamese, Von Tron, semi-super model, maybe a role model, whatever that means. She served at the Krishna free lunches. Yes, that is a name. 4 dash 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 dash. So I studied relationship dynamics and being physically driven in some ways, though I'm not athletic and look about normal. Though as beautiful as anyone who chooses to be. I also studied the mechanics of seduction, dramatically labeled. I won't go on about graphic or explicit life scenes, because it doesn't serve the focus of this piece. And with that said, I met Von Tron. I no longer am strategy in life. I am flow. Flow is perfect, when flowing, free. At that point, I applied strategy for basically the last time. I came to value 100% authentic relationships thereafter. Vaughn is into tarot. I read her tarot, and at her peak interest moment, turned away and focused across the way 20 feet. It pulled her in. I called her cellular communicator phone and said I was doing something great and so forth, details, and only barely kind of invited her. She was very tiny. I'll spare the details. Suffice, a poem was written before meeting, and I shared it by handing the paper to her hands when we went to a bank of shore around a way of St. Augustine. It said, "On the shores of reason." One of the lines, she became angry and said, "I don't like that. The shores of reason." Angry. I said, "Look, it's a poem. You can't get angry at a poem. It's a fucking poem. Fucking artistic license." So forth. Thus ended that a week later. And ended the alpha-female, little Vietnam bed wars, potential for love, in yet another soul phase. Again, admitted being a strategist, at first, is still not loving, really, and I am so no more. I find strategy callous to the soul. Love, plus the divine, an infinite moment as it loyally grows. I do love the language. Her speaking of it transported me to anime and beyond. Another was Buddhist. Asiatic Emily or Mary was later. Whom was hiding from her soul. But that is not relevant to travel around Haert beyond this sentence. She is out east now, likely. Last relationship for this time was Julie Lotto, who recurred. We flirted, never furthered. In retrospect, she was quite unkind. She was like a not cliché Rihanna, with bottle glasses and a similar mother to my father. She had curly hair and appears thrice in this story never naked, though dating one rude fool whose name slips, who with help is now improving slowly. Casper is a kid, now adulter, who asked for tobacco oft. I gave it freely. Felt like the right thing to do. Saw him months ago. He's going along, making it. Just needed some faith. Everyone else at Mods treated him like shit. I loved his potential. Around this time, I listened to a lot of White Stripes, experimenting with feeling sorrow for the loss of marriage and savoring the feeling of the sorrow, though I still peacefully fight with all might for love. Casper is a very cosmic being, and was where I first heard the word Adderall. The last syllable combining raw and all. 5. .. Turtle is a spray paint artist, a jangled history. He explained his homeless lifestyle to us yuppies, including the territorialism of street art. A former Method Crystal student he is, in Boulder now. The meta-hertorical Atlanteans overused crystal technology, it is said. 3 more people before the Travel's spindle tilt. Kavi Cody, I'll call one. Becoming a couple, Kavi laughed. Working at a fucking Taco Bell on Archer Road. Cody fronted Expert and made it to Degree. Really a screamo genre artist vocalist. They became daters, and Kavi called Abundance a bun dance. Evan, similar to word Ivan from A Past, and Vaughn is a character, a creation of development earlier with many people in Gainesville, embodied previous stirring. He danced with karate and always said, "Justice, punch!" Taught me how mean bad energy is to me and others, and made fun of me as a potent, kind teacher. I noticed the year after the fact. Sitting at Maud's one day, a green plastic table and chairs, of course. Tim walks up, short hair and a long beard, looking grimy and dirty in the eyes. I was discardant. Toggled note Ren, left a note on Ren's cottage door years ago, and glass shards dripping with some blood, and a Cat Stevens CD, referred to track 9 or 12 or something. She didn't even listen to it, really. So medium or slow forward 2 weeks at the Center Park Farmers Market. Hippies appear out of hidden ivy, not in Hogtown, aka G-Vale, and I was on desire mission with mushrooms genius that evening to mix it with coffee as tea. Affected and effected by coffee still, those early 2000s, the mix was beneficial after the point. Met with Sergio that earlier day, who had the magic, and his friend again, Tim. Tim was a little nicer this time. Found out years later he had used to bust people's heads. Met Hector or Hecht, and Mike, I think, some rainbow family without knowing it. Some old man tainted younger sister Audrey's opinion of rainbow, returned mocking it with Ren. I was ignorant of the national and regional gatherings of the tribes of the rainbow family of living light. Suffice. I was dragged to Acola area regional nor Florida walking in. Other than the expanded and expansive and extended journey in, always a challenge to find. Long unnamed National Forest dirt roads. I walked to a car with 3 rainbow sisters as they name. Never got involved, obviously, but I was given a name. One of the females is Brianna, Milt something, known as Breezy. Another is Summer, who appears later before I died, which will be explained. Breezy noticed the automatic flirtation, which I shortly outgrew months later. Noticing it, she called me Jackson, and I met the puppy Potato. I have come to be okay with Jackson, though I prefer no names. I prefer Lee to Jackson. So Rainbow is like a tiny example, 28 people, 2 fires. Every rainbow is different, of course, gatherings and otherwise. Hecht, and Mike are from NY City, Nuevo York. Such an infinite clean energy. A regional is small. This one tiny, 2 kitchens, fire-sitting circles called bliss pits because of the warmth of sleeping cuddled by fires, blissing out, doing nothing but loving perfect company of family random pocket trades began. I gave more than received. They were as astounded as I was by their astoundment at the free giving. We connected all night, New Yorkers making me cry, with the simplest ongoing joke all night about boilin'. We was just boilin'. Yep, you cook 'em, shave 'em. I cut the potatoes up, turn them round, put it in my pot, shave 'em, boilin'. Yeah, we were boiling all night. Hey, what are you guys talking about? I talk all day, I don't care. If it don't infringe on the... See, I grip that potato there. Got my potato skinner there. Don't matter, it's already dead in the mind, you see. Ain't gonna bother it none. It's a potato. Boiling. Yeah, we're boiling. Son, we boiling. Can you guys please stop? Boiling, stop, show. Stop, start her up again, just boiling, you know. Like a boiling. 20-minute boil, sure, 29 minutes. Keeps going, you know, why not? Stop it, start it. Wash up them there potatoes there. Yeah, we boil socks, why not? Put some of them watches all in there. Get the boil going on in strong. Just start it, stop a fire, turn up the gas stove. Because the root of that boil there, like it's just a fucking spigot. Boiling fountains, boil, oh my little big toe, what a fine boil we're gonna have boiling tonight now. Fry it, boil it, skillet, whatever, it don't matter, boy. Boiling. So began traveling. One man was considered crazy because he said things like a tent had bad juju, in so many words. Came to find out he was beyond sane crazy duality, until escape aid won fogginess for a few trips, only few. The first trip here is to Austin. The nostalgia offering and connection prompted the trip. 6. .. Turtle somehow. Casper, Cthulhu Kid, Wall Old Soul, Cody Kavi, all in Honda. Ugly shape and color, with its lover, this author, creatively robbed. Turtle told a story with the way to New Orleans, North Florida, Austin in between. His story, thin disappearance in New Orleans. When 17, Turtle was on a Golden Gate foggy bridge. Though clear, on LSD walked across. This made nervous, only in beginning, now I relate. So we get to New Orleans, moving true, and it was really a matter of the Zupans choosing love or fear beyond. Cliché. To determine if this abandoned author. And in New Orleans, the hazy, thick air by water by that French quarter is prominence. Of course, we sought the coffee shop. Mods being irreplaced, we went to the world-famous Blah, and it was close to MacDonald's. Turtle disappears in the midst, after flipping out, paranoid about non-extant reality. On the outskirts of New Orleans are the Elysian Fields, magical and blue-green with some marsh, especially etheric. At night, if you catch drifting crescent silver star sparkling pure worlds, apart from this enslaved one, diamond dust. We get further going, Austin eclipsing cleft ramps. The designer of the freeways in Austin died on them, I was told, haha. I remember when laughter was more than mechanism. Maybe one day it will feel to be it again, though it looks okay. So there was an individual named Kevin Yu, who is affiliated with Play Your Heart. I am a fan of the RZA and Wu. I believe Kevin is. We met Be Real, of the cypress one day. I said, "Be real. I saw your You on the Love Line episode and appearance. And no, it was really good though. It was cool. I loved it." He smiled. Definitely, he was being real, even in front of social pressure, which is always unsaid and everywhere. There are people, obviously. So Kevin, I originally had semi-noticed in Austin while married. I heard hearsay from others that reminded me of the way I was judged and spoken of when in Jesu 9, Cleves land, and then nothing. People had heard, "He says he's the king of Portugal or something, I don't know," and that was it. This time, showing up with the rambunctious, childish group, we went to the Triangle, which is a triangular-shaped section of grass, with a threads rooting outside, a strip of established, to varied degrees, busynesses, one of which is Flipnotics. Ramon, working temporally there, called me to revisit it, and there stood Kevin. We instantaneous compiled superimposing jocularities, and spelled jokes as one not perfect. We has enough common ground to forage with. We pitched together, the group and all, and purchased a La Quinta room. Some slept on the floor. We enjoyed a Chinese buffet and went back to Gainesville. Kevin exposed his ass in Gainesville. I let Kevin eat pasta and sleep in my room on the floor in Gainesville. It was the last apartment I would have for some years. So I wound up traveling with Tim, Sergio, and Kevin along the way out to LA, leaving the Gainesville apartment. I remember distinct sleeping outside in the desert by the car. Tim asked me why Kevin was acting like a 13-year-old girl, when Kev kept calling the car a metal coffin. In retro, I see it obvious there. Signature donuts. So, bacon quilt. And 7 ... When we pulled into LA, Kevin said, "Now that's what I call a city." Feeling the night's light's immensity after desert days and days, nighttime arrival. LA standing dark and flickered on, fluorescent yellow-white cubes of light in gigantic silver-gray black, sometimes rounded, rectangularish, batteries that give and receive buildings, immense vibe, downtown LA, introduced to us. So Tim, very happily reunited with Breezy. We saw Malibu, Santa Monica briefly, Hollywood, Venice Beach, Beverly Hills, Laurel Canyon, Sepulveda, others briefly, and me and Kevin alone found ourselves in old Topanga Canyon. People told us to beware of the creekers there. Topanga is a road connecting the valley, where valley girls come from, and Malibu, Santa Monica, Venice Beach, the ocean. Basically. And on the 28-minute or so stretch of mountainous freeway besets national forests and park, on mountain sides and tops, 3/4 little snaggles or establishments as nerve centers, where the 10 to 20,000 Topangians frequent, yet live tucked back, not terribly connected with each other, some brightly wealthy, even a few resplendent. They are all more or less LA hippies, which is, of course, a paradox. Very materialized, money-having, yet new agey, and part granola. We went to the main flower shop and began flirting with the flower girls to no avail. Hopeless and houseless, we scouted for Kevin's old friend, Zenal. Directed to the property, we walked uphill to find his brother disgruntled, having just found, painted, and released a rattlesnake. His property fountained sculptures alive around and under round houses. Kick. Chuck Norris. We smoked heroin twice. I hallucinated a mild quiff. Buteus felt. Kevin compelled drew me to Vaniety under a cliche bridge with a mutual friend who lived kind of suburban equivalent in Topanga. We had walked around Mountaintop Park before more rattlesnake fields. We were crossed by one and turned back temporarily. In the space of a few days, I shot heroin, witnessed its value and dangers, fought nausea afterwards, and met a DMT laboratizing college student mixed with pot. I was not smoking often those days. DMT is the penultimate psychedelic, 1,000 times stronger than LSD. To the opiate, Kevin became fairly habituated. DMT being a chemical found naturally in the center of the brain of humans and many mammals, and is released in large amount near conception and death, a chemical considered related to souls entering and exiting, vehicular, released in deep dream states, as well as smoked. It's synthesized off-white form on some weed. Myself centered the plant life in a ring around, especially the weed flowers started to dance, waving stems, entering a dream while awake. Froggy's is one of the two main popular bars, Topangian, with the restaurant have worn out. They let me sleep on the couch by the fireplace in the near back nook. Kevin knew a Froggy's waiter. At the other of the two cantinas, I met a slightly overweight, very wealthy, mid-30s, not very intelligent, almost snippy music studio in her mansion woman. Not knowing better at the time, my style to achieve was occasionally arrogant, occasionally then reflected back. After talking music, her studio, my singing, I began to sell myself, as I did back then, time to time. She said, well, you are an exceptional speaker, and that you're really lucky to have met me. We wound up talking spirituality and walking through barren mountain trails removed from the parks overlooking ravines. She, in mid of a conversation, said, look, behind us, there's an old Indian spirit following us. I looked back and saw him for a second, 60 to 80 feet behind us. Later at Froggy's, wishing I was playing Frogger somewhat, I met a middle-aged couple of women and was invited to one of theirs cottage. I just looked around and the side-winding bushy road with cottage and triangle windows remains memoir-ed. Kevin and I, after sleeping at Zilliam's and under a bridge on a fucking ratty couch with rats burrowing inside that woke me once, drove around and stumbled into a festival with many hippies, flutes, tapestries, bongos, grassy field, macrame, booths, pretension, positivity, and cool dancing. Me and Kevin parted ways to meet again quite some time later. We had one last experience together, a fuller definition of gas jugging. To say, first, if one says, I'm coming from so-and-so city, and I'm trying to get to both cities close to the equidistant point, from which one would humility request. And I didn't calculate the gas right, or I ran out of gas, so forth. And with red jug in hand, with my number of spigot types, is there any way you can spare any amount of gas at all? Thank you. Kevin, myself, had poor success, and many nerves. Repetitive irony of rich LA yans denying much through expensive car window. We parted ways, solo for once in some time. I wound in a Venice Beach apartment, blocks from ocean, somehow still in a non-sexual context with a plastic surgerized 40-something girl. A pattern for that month, I guess, the 40-somethingers. She showed me Gold Ring on the YouTube after I had, as I was then, flaunted spiritual awareness show-offy. Her sheets are black. Again, we didn't find love, even snuggle, and let alone fuck. But she was quite hospitable, and being allowed to nap on her bed. The thread count was satiny, almost silky, interwoven in this stanza with her lower lip additions, and probably enhanced crests. Honestly, no sex. Yet in her strange way, I believe she was flirting with me repeatedly. Gold Ring is a continuous open channeling that is spiritually high-tech. Floody concerns, and segued via this cool Venice woman to somewhere in the valley, close to West Hollywood. After Kevin and Lee, days before, had visited my Aunt Donna in VB, mildly offending or estranging her with Kevin's eccentricities, she was still nice. Kevin, exampled, will never litter, is a philanthropist, however almost homeless, an aspiring billionaire, did actually mingle with A-listers, though his animal rights activism got him in trouble. He has a heart of sapphire gold, almost a brother. For a DMT ceremony, my second of 3 profound DMT experiences, the third much later, I do respect Tangelos. I am beyond turducken. Pink Venice satin lips was a liaison of a sort, and I helped them acquire the DMT. We discussed first the technology of spirituality and DMT's chemognostics purports, the solemnity of the soon-to-be undertaken experiamony after the phrase holding space was thrown around a bit. The room was mellowed, with the energy cleared to an unruffled ripless, rug-like stillness. We took turns one by one, smoking the DMT rocks, while the rest of us held space. As I smoked it, I accelerated through all my Buddhist practices to a two-hand pose, confusable or mistakable for Christiish, Sai Chik Ka Li, communicating with said woman in Arcturian arcs of tone, circuitous. I found myself hearing tones from another galaxy, always seconds before she sang them, and helped facilitate bringing them into this earthen zone. I surprising adept with DMT, spirit evolution accelerations, as unfolding. My adaptation brought me to really come into my own. Channeling answer is clear sunrise, an avatar of old hitherto hibernated mantis, Buddha, serpent Jesus. I instructed others while the space remained and provided. After sleeping on yet another couch, I left the Los Angeles Quint County area. I've never have been to Queens, then departing to San Francisco, Fresno, on and as away with what? Gold, roads, solitude, boredom, sorrow, unappointed meant, unexpected, pockets of ear, 8 dash 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 dash. The golden glass roads of inner mid-California, I met with a smug woman via couchsurfpolka.com. In the busy Mission District, San Francisco, still pretty new to him, Mr. Lee. All day, kid. She was SF smug. I bought her $50 of food, and she denied the very couch we met for to surf. It is quite windy that night. I wound, helped by parents, God and all love them, back to Ohio. As I continued to scrawl and keyboard press symbols on these portions we call page. First, I used new endowment fundings to sleep another night in the SF, Gold Bay area. In the now neo-hippie and gypsy punk, still others in famous Haight-Ashbury districtus. At a Red Vic Inn, touting complete, personalized, unique, and themed rooms, I heard street chaos loudness all night. Previously homeless screamed omniscience when sidewalk hills, foggy, misty. I left San Fran to drive to Ohio, hearts of all. Sacramento passed quickly, more gold hills, nature seated, precursing astonish men. The little car drove out of the California with unpaid parking SF ticket, an unpaid toll bridge $50 ticket. Now lost in system, 5 years later, or 4, 9 dash 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 dash. Biggest little city, Reno, dust-buckling tumbletown, in the outer middle of Decifid, Nevada. Still somehow there were homelesses, old gamblers, and tininess. I promptly lost $20 at the slots. Years before, I made jokes about Schlotzskys and a burst over to good old Mormon SLC punk. Salt Lake City has a salt lake. You can taste salt in the back of your throat. By the little hangy thing, Abdullah Mangala Borealis Sonata, or it is a very particular place, peculiar, stark Mormon creation sculptings, auburn, gray, maroon, pink, red, amber, the gray stone Mahor buildings, silent-y. I tried to tell people there are a lot of apostrophes in Hawaii. There just is. And I love Pahoa and Hawaii, all around and overall. Viva Pele. Somehow it really is quite like there is a contrast, sharpness, dial, and knobs in life. And the vision, and someone had turned up the sharpness knob quite tight for the Salt LC. I went to the dead lake, little chain reactive, frames from the movie life. Missing. Trippy claymation-esque, like the rain on puddles, if you zone out on it. Crustaceous shrimp, water spider, like tiny tadpole, like fishes, just one kind. Those little atomic fish creatures are all that live in that lake. City, salt. Cheyenne and Wyoming are passed through quickly. Wyoming is empty, intense, odd, awesome in itself. I do want to see Missoula when I have the Missoula to do so. I saw the malls in SLC and coffee shop and Hot Topic within, with nervous couch surfing hosts that denied couching. 10 dash 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 dash. Oh, Omaha, Nebraska, and I never visited Alaska, is a dank band, 311, continuing CS, couchsurf, vein. I met with a whiter-skinned and a blacker-skinned girls, women, at the cool Omaha coffee shop. I was envisioning a threesome, of course. Instead yet, we went to a family's basement and watched Atonement. Ha! And yes, at the time I was not amused. They spoke of transcendent morales. There's gold, natured plants, and steaks in Nebraska's 11 dash 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 dash. Des Moines, Iowa City, Illinois, bring the noise. A moist vibe, gentle, clear, fresh and pure. That Lincoln homeland. I have developed affinity for the college towns and went to Arkansas, a little college town, Peoria, or of the like, with a pure river and pure grass vegetation, plots, paths, and the bridge, the downtown, the geomancy, faded memorially. Now the monuments have fuzz and recollectories. 12 dash 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 dash. Chicago, where Tim and Michelle and others resilition from. Very big. The food really is incredible. Plus tremendous in the Chicago crime outside of the motel too. Cool district was cool. I drank not alcohol and I was still more of a coffeeer. Now alcohol has the mellow presence following a binge period once upon a time in the future of this traveling heart story. I talk to people for direction and referencing refer all. Will Ferrell shout in. Their guidance led to a theater festival outside of an art college, especially the Italian food I liked. There were naked, ornamented, gold star, staggered, stripping young women, holding decorated eggs. Many more displays and booths. I feel incomplete, experiencing Chicago still. 13 dash 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 dash. Indianapolis came closer still in the close. Famali, a boring town to me because I have gotten under its surface. Despite there always have been locals of any town almost to say their town is of some boring. Speaking of which, in terms of past percept, it is back to Columbus. Similar to Indianapolis, circular, intelligent, mild, I returned to parent to find much love. Migrated to hookah bars, I stayed in town a pretty short timing, and went first to Shisha. It is a hookah, indoor smoking, colorful varietization of a Discover. It is there I first really met death, but it was okay, I lived.